Do you remember the whole thing with Trump being charged 450 million or whatever it was for fraud? And when we looked into it, it looked like total nonsense. The fraud, the people that he had apparently defrauded by apparently inflating the value of his property, said that he hadn't defrauded them, and in fact he was a very valuable client. And the value of his property that the New York authorities estimated was ridiculously low for what it actually is. So it looked like a clear setup. Trump is being fined 450 million for that, and probably what they wanted. And people were saying earlier that that the bond would be at about 10%. Maybe that's the standard. Turns out no, the bond is 100%. That's what it seems like anyway. So they're just trying to do everything they possibly can to take away from him whatever assets he has that they can take, because that'll make it harder for him to campaign. Not that I don't think he strongly needs to, like most candidates do, but still, what they're doing now is, even someone as wealthy as Trump doesn't have 450 million in cash they can just produce. And so even when Elon Musk, worth 200 billion or more, when he needs 44 billion, he doesn't have 200 billion, but he can accrue an amount that may approach that. But he had to borrow that 44 billion from a bunch of investment banks to actually have the capital. You have to get it from someone that actually has it. Trump has a lot of that money wrapped up in things, including things in New York. So he can't just have the money. And so because of that, and I think this is part of their plan, they're going to take his property. They're going to start taking things from him in New York. This is only different from what Putin does in that Trump hasn't been assassinated by them yet. But as Wes has pointed out, there have been attempts, whether it was directed by top-level antagonists against Trump, we don't know, but could have been. But this is straight up third world interference in democracy, very clearly. And it's the kind of storm that Trump will have to weather, that we'll all have to weather to get through this. So they might end up taking whatever assets he has in New York, which I think is Trump Tower, right? Is that not in New York? Breaking, New York Attorney General Letitia James has just taken the initial steps to seize President Trump's assets. This is totally un-American, they say, and the bond payment deadline hasn't even been reached yet. James is starting off with Trump's golf course and private estate north of Manhattan, known as Seven Springs. Is America still savable, he says. Now, Trump losing this stuff is obviously completely wrong. But he can survive without it, I expect. Maybe there's a lot of profit coming through from those places over time. But he can survive without it, and he can base himself in Florida, which is not going to do this at the moment. So it's not catastrophic, but it's still very wrong, and it's still many hundreds of millions of dollars of value, most likely. And of course, if they can get away with it, they will drastically undervalue his assets so as to take as many of them as possible. This is essentially the state of New York stealing all of Trump's property because they don't like him. And in response, Trump has unfortunately had to make the somewhat humbling request for people to help him out. Trump's tower defense. Donald pleads with Patriot supporters to help him save assets from Letitia James. Former President Donald Trump's campaign is asking 1 million of his supporters to save Trump Tower from being seized to secure a $454 million bond in his New York civil fraud case. If Trump cannot secure his total bond amount, state prosecutors can start seizing some of his assets. In a Wednesday message, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee's campaign asked for donations to protect Trump Tower in New York City from being seized by Letitia James, the state attorney general. If Trump cannot secure his total bond amount, state prosecutors can start seizing some of his assets. Keep your filthy hands off Trump Tower, the message said. Insane radical Democrat AG Letitia James wants to seize my properties in New York. This includes the iconic Trump Tower. According to a Reuters report, the message was sent by a joint fundraising committee that allocates donations to Trump's 2024 campaign and to a separate political committee that pays for Trump's legal bills. The message had prompts that asked supporters to donate specific amounts of money and accused James of being part of a larger effort alongside President Joe Biden to take down the former president's campaign. Honestly, Trump, I think of the two options, option one, they steal your property. Option two, you pay them $400 million of your donors' money, I think let them take the property. Because
the thing is,
it's going to...
he's going to...
Go on.
No. He's going to get the money back.
He should. I don't know if he actually will.
No, he will, because if necessary, he'll take it to the Supreme Court. Because this is blatantly unlawful.
Well, this should already be going
I have
to the
a
Supreme
feeling...
Court.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I'm sure they're already starting the process, and there's no way the Supreme Court won't take this, because this could be potentially devastating for real estate owners.
Yeah.
And real estate owner, and the Fourth Amendment is one of those things you do not mess with, ever. So, and you can make the argument, well, they haven't addressed the Second Amendment. Yes, they have, multiple times, especially in the last few years. They have. So I have a feeling if and when this gets to the Supreme Court, this will be reversed very, very fast. And then Trump will have the ability to sue the ever-loving pants off of the state of New York. And if he doesn't say, state of New York, you're fired, I will be greatly disappointed.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if there's any dissent among the authorities in New York against taking his property. But I guess you're right, Wes, that there's a fair chance that he can get the money back. But it might take a while, or it might still benefit them in other ways. It seems like maybe they do want to f with the property, though, and take down his long-term value.
Well, they absolutely do, because I don't know if you remember, but they valued Mar-a-Lago, which is a literal coast-to-coast real estate property on one of the most exclusive islands in the state of Florida, which means one of the most exclusive islands in the country, like several mile long and wide property at $18 million. There are properties that are a quarter of the size right next to Mar-a-Lago that are 80 million. Yeah. So they're going to go there. So it's so that because they thought they'd be able to do this in Florida, but they weren't able to because it keeps getting blocked. They were going to do this. They were going to go, okay, well, you owe 350 million. So we'll just seize Mar-a-Lago because that's 18 million. And now you owe us another 300 and whatever million dollars that's left. Because this is to ruin him financially and personally.
Yeah.
They're trying their best to ruin him so that he won't get a chance to run. But that's not going to work because he's going to win one way or the other. Like that you want to talk about a mispronounced bloodbath comment? You could quote me here. If Donald Trump does not become president, you will most likely see violence. Because most of the Trump supporters are not going to accept him losing again. So, sorry.
To clarify on the wording there, when Wes says accept, he means believe, I think, because Trump is not going to lose if the vote goes the way the voters intend. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. Same as last time.
Yeah. It's because it's very, very obvious that he is by far the most popular candidate in this country. And if Joe Biden wins again, there is no way that the American people as a whole are going to accept it. Accept it, believe it, however you want to put it. They're not going to accept it. So say what you will. But take from that what you will.
So
there we go.
So, okay, yes, fair enough. Probably is better to pay it and then get it back from the Supreme Court. Still, though,
and also,
the point that I was going to make as on top of that, which is I think works either way, but might be more effective if New York end up taking the property, is that it's going to drive away a lot of business from New York, of people realizing that this could happen to them. They say the wrong thing. So, Trump was ordered to pay nearly $500 million bond after the state Supreme Court. Read that already, or let's explain that already. Lawyers said 30 companies rejected his request for a bond to cover the judgment. claiming securing that amount of cash was a practical impossibility. Not sure that's true, really. They've probably been shutting him out to a large extent. Despite scouring the market, the filing read, "We have been unsuccessful in our effort to obtain a bond for the judgment amount for defendants, for the simple reason that obtaining an appeal bond for $464 million is a practical impossibility under the circumstances presented." Every aspect of this ruling has been ramped up as hard wrong as they possibly could. He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
The people who were the supposed victim in this civil case did not believe they were a victim. They didn't want this to happen. In most cases like this, you might see fines as high as 10 million or so, or a few million maybe, but you're going to see hundreds of millions. And I did read that someone said that usually the bond's about 10% of the total amount due, not 100%. And of course, they're moving forward very quickly to try and take his property. So yeah, it goes without saying, this appears from all angles to be a colossal injustice, and I wish him the very best in defending from it.